Hello, my name is Carrie and welcome to the Yukon Entrepreneur podcast series. We're recording today on the traditional territory of Champagne and Ajax First Nations. And my guest today is Teresa. Teresa, please introduce yourself.
Hello, Dinik a Volket Nelnah Chonsi, Noglik a Teresa Vander Meer-Chassé Chonsi. I don't have my entire introduction memorized, so that's where I'm going to leave it. My name is Teresa Vander Meer-Chassé. My upper Tanana name is Volket Nelnah. It was given to me by late elder Mary Tyon and translated by late elder Ada Gallen to mean strong woman on a hill watching over her people. I'm a member of the White River First Nation of Beaver Creek, Yukon and Alaska, and I'm an artist, consultant, and curator. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. So just tell us a little bit about your business. How long has it been operating? What is it that your business is?
Gosh, it's probably, so I'm what is it called? Self-proprietor? What is that word?
Sole proprietor?
Sole proprietor, yeah. So I'm a sole proprietor and it's probably been 8-9 years. I can't remember now. My mom has been an entrepreneur for her entire life. So it was kind of natural for me to be self-employed. That's just kind of the avenue that I took. I worked with, different organizations and things like that, but I just don't like the hierarchy. I can't be told what to do. So I basically became a sole proprietor of a consulting. I do a lot of things. So consulting, curating, and art, all within the same thing, which is me. Because you yourself can be a business, right? So I really focus on my visual arts practice. I focus on curatorial work, which is actually most of my income comes from curating and consulting, not from my art practice. My art practice is kind of something a little bit separate. Although I do sell work, it's not as much of a priority of income. So I get it through my consulting and curating. And consulting, I work with like museums, galleries, all of these different kinds of things. Sometimes it's about, I don't know, like just collection equality, thinking about audiences coming into a space, like all of those different kinds of things I've done. Training volunteers and staff, like those kind of things I've been a consultant with. So yeah, 8 or 9 years, I can't even remember.
And so your client base, if you're working with museums and that sort of thing, like, is that rooted in the Yukon? Is it Canadian? Is it international? What's your sort of range of client base?
Mostly Yukon, actually. That's kind of where everything is. And right now I'm in Victoria, BC. So I'm Victoria, BC, Whitehorse, Yukon, and Beaver Creek, Yukon. I kind of jump between the three places, but it's constantly Yukon. I'm always drawn to it. I have done some consulting work for other places in Canada, but I like to focus on Yukon. That's where I know, like just knowing people, knowing artists, knowing the space, knowing audiences that come to Yukon. It's just, that's where that's just where I'm really good at focusing on is Northern. So Yukon's always been the priority. So that's kind of where my client base is. For my art practice, that's completely different. That's Yukon, Canada, and international. So I have two very different aspects of my career that I have to kind of put in balance. Yeah.
So Teresa, I want you to kind of go back in time a little bit, and I want you to think about or tell us a story about your first memory of the pandemic. It was a common kind of like, where were you the day JFK was shot? Not that we were old enough to be there, but that idea. So where were you when you realized, oh, we're in a pandemic?
Yeah. And we did this interview about a year ago too, like one of our first. So when was that? March, February?
I think we interviewed fairly early on, but you know what? I honestly don't have the date in front of me.
I don't remember either. Yes, I know exactly where I was. I was at Burnt Toast in Whitehorse, Yukon, with Mary Bradshaw and I can't remember his name right now. Our preparator for. We had just finished setting up Emerging North, which was an exhibition with, I can't even remember how many artists, 8, 9, maybe 11 Indigenous young artists from Yukon or associated with Yukon. And that was for the Arctic Winter Games. So the Arctic Winter Games was about to happen. Emerging North was my first big exhibition that I curated by myself. So I was very excited and stoked about it. And then we heard like just some kind of whispers of, there's something happening in the world. And I'm like, what is this? This sounds ridiculous. Like I was very much in denial. And then literally a week later, it was Emerging North, the Yukon Art Center is shut down. And it just kind of went down from there. But yeah, I know that exact moment where we were kind of like, talking about, is this where we're going to have to go? Are we going to have to wear masks? Like we had no idea what it was. And I had no clue that I would ever live to see something like this. These are stories from long ago, plague years. I didn't think I would actually live through one. So yeah, it was a bizarre time, but yeah, it hit me right at the moment of a very big time in my career.
Yeah. So yeah, that first lockdown, shutdown, where everything really stopped, and the Arctic Games are really that like key memory for a lot of Yukoners. Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
So which of the public health measures have you found to be the most challenging, like that have affected your business the most profoundly?
So in the early days of the pandemic, it was the fact that galleries and museums closed. And during that time, and it really did take a year for museums to figure out what they were going to do. I'm very grateful that everything has, changed and been online. And now we have platforms like this to be able to speak to one another. But I felt very lost right at the beginning. Like my shows, I think I had 3 or 4 exhibitions lined up and they were all canceled, all delayed. So that was the biggest thing, was just the closure of a physical space, because galleries and museums weren't necessarily prepared to go online. I know people have been talking about it, and there was kind of discussion throughout the museum and arts communities of doing more content online, but this really pushed them to do it online. So yeah, my career got paused. I couldn't curate because I didn't have a space. I didn't know how to curate an online exhibition at all. So it was a lot of trying to relearn what I was still learning, because I consider myself an emerging curator. So I'm still, trying to figure out the spaces and how to work with art in the space, but to demonstrate it and share it online with audiences was a very different way of learning. I'd say that was the biggest thing, was the closure of just public spaces. That was really hard.
And because of those, all these different guidances and restrictions, we've had to kind of adapt how we do our business, and what has been the adaptation that you're most proud of in your business?
Oh gosh. For me, so what happened to me, I guess, since we last talked, was I went back to school. So I'm in my master's program right now, Master of Fine Arts at Concordia University. So I took a pause in 2020, after the Emerging North curation. I just didn't work basically almost for that whole year. There was very little work to find. So I just had to kind of weigh my options, what's going to happen to me? I'm stuck I didn't see a future. I didn't see anything. And I applied for university. So that's kind of what's happened to my business and myself, is I took a break from it and went back to university just to refocus my efforts, what I want to do in life. So that's kind of where I am right now. I just kind of took a break. I'm doing little contracts now again, but they're very small. I have said no to a lot of really big opportunities just because I'd rather do those things in person. I'd rather do them when I'm able to travel and things like that. And I just had to say no to a lot of things. So yeah, just kind of re-educating myself now.
Makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So what have you learned about your business model over the last couple of years?
That's a really good question. I think it was earlier this year, I got a grant from the Canada Council They were doing, what they call it, digital originals, where it was like this little grant for artists and arts professionals to, put things online. So again, we're trying to learn about this world. And so I got that grant and it helped so much. I got a logo, which I've never had before. My partner built me a brand new website. So like not one of those free ones where like the ads pop up in the, below corner or whatever. So like those kind of things, I restructured everything during like early 2021, late 2020. I really looked at what am I doing? How am I doing things? Because one thing to note is when you're a sole proprietor, especially when you're beginning, even though I'm 8 years in, it's still new. I undersell myself so much. I always feel bad. So then I always charge people less, but I'm worth so much more. So that is what I've learned is I'm charging what I'm worth, or what at least I feel like I'm worth, but restructured everything. Because of the website, I had to think about what is my priority? Is it curating? Is it art? What is it? And I really focused on curating. I'm really interested in curatorial field, and I really just kind of focused everything that way. I also built, what do I call it? Like services guide. I built kind of like a little services guide for myself. And I basically, if there's an inquiry about, can you do this for us? Can you do this workshop? Can you do whatever? I send them the guide, and it has kind of things laid out of, how long will a project possibly take? What are the services I offer? How much? That all happened like in 2021, which really helped me kind of focus and be just almost cleaner with my business too, like really keep myself organized. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about sort of accessing this grant. Have you accessed any of the other pandemic related supports that were federal or territorial, municipal?
No, I didn't. I had enough savings that was good throughout 2020. And that's where I just kind of decided not to access anything. I didn't want to bother with tax with those kind of things, and having to pay back. I don't like loans. I'm not very good with those kind of things. I try to pay things out right away. I think I got that from my mom. But yeah, no, I didn't access anything. I was also feeling like during 2020, I lost 2 grandparents during the pandemic, and it was very difficult because there was been no funerals. We weren't able to travel at that time, and now that the cases are rising again, who knows when I'm actually going to be able to travel. So yeah, those kind of things. Like I just felt like I just didn't want to be associated with anything that said COVID on it. It was kind of like for myself and for my business, I just didn't want to. I didn't need it. I was fine. And other people needed it, and other businesses needed to access that, but I was fine throughout it. So yeah.
Going forward, how are you thinking about your business differently? What opportunities do you see?
Like that's a big one for me, because it is the fact that I am in school. I just I'm in my 2nd year, and it's a 3-year program. And I just like, it's now that I love this point in life when it's like the dreaming stage again. I have something that's structured. I have something that's working for me, but I want it to go further. I want it to develop further. I want it to progress. And I am really at the dreaming stage of like, what can I do now? And I just going to Concordia has opened a couple doors, because most of my contracts right now are actually through Concordia, because I decided not to do too many outside contracts or anything like that. So there's so much more access to different opportunities, and I can't give them all away because they're not announced yet, but there are some curatorial opportunities that I wouldn't have had if I didn't choose to go to school at this exact time. So I'm really grateful for that. And it's just, I'm really focused on curating. That is the focus. Like I can see that in my future. That is something I just absolutely love to do. And with my arts practice, less commercial retail. I'm just not very good at it. I don't really like it very much. And I really like working in gallery spaces. So actually creating art for those kind of spaces. So I think there's going to be a lot of that in the future for me. And I can just see that's where I'm headed. That's where my business is headed, is kind of more focused on gallery presentation, showcasing those kind of things, more so than the retail side of things, which was a focus before. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still in the dreaming stage, but that's where it's heading.
That's good. And, it's been interesting for me just like listening to you talk again and reconnecting, because it has been a while, but, when you speak about your or like your abilities as a curator, I feel like I'm walking through and remembering that emerging North exhibit, and it's bringing up in me a lot of really positive feelings and emotions from that time. And so I just like my gratitude to you for curating that event and for just how it's making me feel right now as I kind of walk down memory lane with you. So keep doing it.
Thanks.
Okay. Have you picked up any other skills over the last little while? You've talked about going back to school, but anything else that you've picked up?
I mean, just I also, a part of that digital originals grant, I had someone help me with doing like online content, like learning social media, because I wasn't very good at it. I'm still not very good at it, but I have gained the ability to make a decent post, which I think now is like the best time to know that, which is really weird. But yeah, like those kind of things, I wasn't really attracted to that before, like just personally. I mean, I scroll through, but like this making content, I guess they call it, these marketing people content. But yeah, so like that's something that I've been trying to be consistent with in like the last year, is actually like creating content, and it has gained a lot of new followers, which I've never had before. Like I think I had like 200 and now it's at 1,000, and I'm like, who are you people? So that I consider like a valuable skill to have now. Like it's something that I'm still working on, but yeah, I feel like my social media game is way higher now this year because of that. So I mean, I think that's kind of it. Like besides just my artistic work, like, I was able to like work on a moosehide this past summer, like those kind of opportunities I never had the chance to do, because when you're self-employed, a lot of your time is just doing your work. You know what I mean? Like you're in front of a computer all day long, but taking the time to actually work on other parts of yourself and other skills and things like that. I finally got that opportunity when I was able to step away from my business. So I really appreciate those kind of things too. So yeah, there's some new stuff happening.
Very cool. As a business owner, leadership's sort of inherent in all that we do. So what are you learning about leadership during the pandemic?
Oh gosh. Oh, I don't even know how to answer that one. Oh no. Leadership. I can see it as both a sense of pride in leadership, but also disappointment. It's really hard, like just throughout this pandemic, and we're still in it, like I see sometimes people say like, talking about like as if it's ended, and it's not. We're still very much in it. Leadership is kind of an interesting one because it goes to, I mean, our political field right now, like thinking about Yukon and Canada and all of these kind of things, and what does leadership mean? I think for myself, I don't really feel much like a leader at this moment. I think I did before a bit, but I feel very lost. I feel like leadership is it's there, but it's quiet at the same time because we're all trying to figure this out. But I think about like when I think of like leadership during a pandemic, I think about my mom just dealing with the Baker situation in Beaver Creek. You
What was
know,
that?
like
Sorry.
the Bakers,
Oh,
Rodney and Ekaterina Baker, that came to Beaver Creek and took a vaccine.
and
Like
that
my,
was it made international headlines. Do you mind just
it
telling the
did.
audience about that
Yeah,
story?
yeah, sure. So a couple named Rodney and Katerina Baker. I believe they were living in Vancouver at the time, came up to Whitehorse and then chartered a flight from Whitehorse to Beaver Creek, which is my community. And it's, you know, what, 85 people in Beaver Creek. It's very small. Beaver Creek was also one of the very first places to get the vaccine because of, you know, its remoteness and the vulnerable, you know, how many vulnerable people live there. And Rodney and Katerina Baker pretended to work there, work at a hotel, and they got the vaccine. And then they left the same day. And they also broke all the quarantine rules that Yukon had in place at that time. So they were charged in June 2021. They were fined both for breaking that. But yeah, so, and my mom really spoke up. She's been the volunteer COVID rep basically in Beaver Creek since the beginning of the pandemic. She just took it upon herself that you know, we all have that one person, you know, in the community that kind of stands up for it. And for my mom, I think that what pushed her is like her parents. My grandma is not well and is a vulnerable person. And Rodney and Katerina Baker were actually in the same room as my grandparents. So, you know, just those kind of risks and things like that. But yeah, I think about my mom a lot. And, you know, just seeing her in like the New York Times talking about it, it's just crazy. Like, I can't believe it was last year, you know, 2021, that all of this kind of stuff happened. And like, you know, Yukon made these big headlines. Beaver Creek made these big headlines that we've never, ever thought would happen. So that's kind of what I think about when I think of leadership during this time. But for myself, yeah, I feel like I've stepped back a little bit, trying to be a little more quieter, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a brilliant story about leadership and very northern and very reflective of the leadership that we see from White River First Nation, from Beaver Creek community often. Any advice, or sorry, as we sort of think about this, you know, period of instability, and we're in this new normal and whatever this pandemic means for us, how are you thinking about the Yukon economy? Like, what are you hoping sort of shifts as a result of this pandemic and how we think about the northern economy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, like I said, I've kind of taken a step back from myself and my own business and things like that. So I'm not too concerned about that. But I really worry about the tourism sector. That's the sector that kind of birthed me in a way. You know, I really started my career when I was working with Attica Cultural Festival. They really launched everything, my interest in visual arts, like everything like that. And just seeing year after year of Attica being canceled is like, yeah, it's pretty intense. Like it's very odd, and but it's also amazing what they've been able to do, you know, like with the Yukon First Nation arts brand and all of those kind of things, putting things online. But I do worry about the tourism sector. Actually, this past summer, I got another grant because I'm really good at writing grants. If anybody needs help, reach out because I like writing them. So I wrote another grant. It was another Canada Council for thinking about public art and tourism in Beaver Creek. So I really like to focus on Beaver Creek because, you know, I'm from there. And I was thinking about that, and I did some interviews, and I still have more to do. But over the summer, I offered some workshops with Nicole Bauberger about public art that could possibly happen in Beaver Creek and what that means. So we were talking about, you know, right now there's not really any public art in Beaver Creek. There used to be, things like the Muffin in Haines Junction. Like we used to have stuff like that, but it just got destroyed and whatnot. People tore it down or whatever. So I wanted to start a conversation about like, okay, can we bring it back? Like, can we bring those kind of things back? Can we do murals? What can we do to just add some, art and life to Beaver Creek? And a huge conversation that came out of that was tourism and the economy of Beaver Creek. So for those that don't know, Beaver Creek at one point was a huge spot for tourism in the north. There was the dinner and show. There was, it was a whole theatrical event. It's like this hidden gem of the Yukon, and it's all gone now. They used to have the Westmark and Holland America tours, bus tours coming up the highway every night to stop in Beaver Creek just for the show and to walk around. And that place was so lively. There was the Beaver Creek Bonspiel. If anybody back in the day from the 90s and 80s will know what that is, like those kind of things. The community was very much alive. And when I say alive, I mean economically. As a result of tourism. And that closed down like 20 years ago, 10, 20 years ago, I can't remember. But it's been a while that Beaver Creek really hasn't had a tourism economy. The local businesses rely on tourism, gas stations, restaurants, hotels, and they have been closed. And when they're open, there's not many people coming by. It was kind of when the border opened, like just this past summer, like when American tourists were allowed to come in. That's when we finally saw like people, like cars stopping, and we were all like watching, like, oh my gosh, so and so has customers. So it's been a big hit on small communities, especially, and I'm sure in Haines Junction too. But for us, I was thinking about, okay, what can I do? Because I am kind of useless in that department. I don't have a hotel. I don't have a restaurant. I don't know how to help those kind of things. But I thought if I can help with talking about and maybe possibly starting things like public art that could make people stop and stay for longer, or possibly attract Yukoners to travel north and visit Beaver Creek, because I know half of you have never been to Beaver Creek before, because I ask all the time and people are like, I've never been there. You've lived there for 30 years. Like those kind of things, like thinking about our local economy and how to draw them into the smaller communities when we can, when it's not against COVID rules. So that's something that I've been taking pride in a lot, is trying to start something in Beaver Creek, something like public art to attract the possible, tourism economy back. But I don't know, sorry, that was a long conversation, but that's the biggest thing for me that I think about with the Yukon is tourism always gets hit first, and that always relates to arts and culture, and that's the sector that I'm in. So yeah.
I think that was a great example. Teresa, do you have any advice for emerging entrepreneurs right now?
Oh gosh, terrible time to start, but I would say, like, especially in the arts community, I mean, I've seen lots of new artists start, which is amazing during a pandemic, which is, I think, absolutely crazy, but good for them. It's definitely important right now in the arts sector that you do understand online. Like, this is just the way that this is how we are right now. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Galleries and museums and things like that have been open. But, again, things could be shut down at a moment's notice and your exhibition could be canceled. So we can't rely on exhibitions anymore, is basically what I'm trying to say. You have to think about different ways to get your content out there. And right now it's online. Sometimes small gatherings can work, especially with close friends, just to get things kind of moving and get your art and your work out there. For emerging curators, that's definitely a tough one. I would say, I mean, the great thing about Yukon is the galleries there are everyone's so great. Everyone's so nice. The doors are always open. And I think there could be potential there. And I've noticed, despite things going online, there's been a lot more opportunity for artists, I find. There's a lot of grant money out there, either through Yukon or through the federal government, specifically to help artists during times of COVID, to create work. Like, this is a good time to create. You might not be exhibiting yet, but this is a really good time to focus on your practice and really hone in on all of those skills, both as a curator and as an artist. That's all I can really think of is, think about creating new work, trying different things that you've never tried before. Take take a break. Because I found taking a break from all of the hustle bustle that I was doing for like the last 4 years was really needed. Like, I really needed to just kind of step back and be like, okay, what am I doing? Because like before the pandemic, I was really just kind of going contract by contract, trying to find what's the next one. Then I would be piling myself up with different projects. Like, I'd have 4 or 5 going at the same time. And that's not reasonable. Like, some people like it, and I liked it. I liked being really busy, but at the end of the day, I was working from, as soon as I woke up, 8 a.m., I'm on my computer until like midnight, like that's kind of the reality of a self-employed person. But I'd say take the opportunity to have a little breather, learn a new skill, do something, go outside when you can, because I found I spent a lot of time outside, which I've never done before in 2021. Like, I was just like, what else am I going to do? So I guess I'll do that. I also find like working with my hands and creating something. I think people are really interested in creating right now, like just anyone, and not just an artist. People are really wanting to develop something. I know people started gardening, knitting, you know what I mean? Like, build that shed out back that they've been waiting for 10 years to do, because they finally found the time. So yeah, I kind of recommend those kind of things, and definitely reach out to peers. If you're interested in curating, email a gallery, email me. If you're interested in the arts, reach out to people on social media. They're all there to help, which I think is really great. Yeah.
Cool. Any sort of major aha moments for you, shifts in your worldview over the last little bit?
Just those facts of like taking time for myself. It was definitely, COVID was definitely a slap in the face for everyone. But I think especially for entrepreneurs that like the things that we've been doing, we've been so structured for a really long time. Like, you get into the flow of your schedule, and your schedule gets packed. And I think it was a good opportunity to step back, but at the same time, you had to be very creative now. And I'm thankful I don't have a store. I don't have a storefront because I really would feel completely lost. I really feel for those people that have storefronts and restaurants and things like that. I really couldn't imagine what that would mean, because I've been working from my home for the last 8 years. Like, I've been working on a computer the whole time. So my life that way hasn't changed, but it has changed of contracts and things like that. So for myself, it's just getting more creative and doing the proposals and projects that I want to do. Like, not always having to fit into other people's agendas, like actually saying, I have this great idea, who wants to be a part of it? I think is also really important. And I just got really attracted to those kind of things, and always, re-educating yourself is a good time, especially if you don't have much to do anymore. So that's what I did. Yeah.
And what's been your wellness practice to keep you grounded?
Oh gosh. That's a big one that I'm still learning. I'm very much the kind of person that I used to have, like my emails would just bing, bing, bing on my phone, and I would have to answer it immediately. Like, I wouldn't even stop and wait and, email later or whatever. No, like I was constantly always like, I have to respond right now. This person needs an answer. But I kind of stopped doing those things. Sometimes I took some of my email stuff off, or I turned off the notifications. Those things have helped reduce the stress. And, honestly, I really like watching movies. So I take a little bit of time to watch a little TV, a movie here and there, which really helps. Just like, then I don't have to think, my computer's off at like 10. That's my cutoff, 10 p.m. instead of midnight. That's when I turn it off. Like those kind of things have helped a lot, I think. And, just like I said, going outside the summer months. The summer was crazy, 2021, and it's going to be the same this year in 2022. I'm not going to be on a computer. I'm outside every day of the summer. Because of my high tanning, and I started a studio out in Beaver Creek, so people can actually come and visit me. You're welcome to visit. But like those kind of things, like I can't be in touch. Like it's going to be really hard for people to get a hold of me in the summers, but it feels so good, like for my own health, like my mental health and things like that, and my body, my physical health as well. It was the best thing that I could have done. Was spent the summer outside building, high tanning, which is crazy difficult. I just loved every minute. Like it was the thing that I needed, and it's going to be the thing that I do this year as well, which is really good. Yeah, people need that time.
Teresa, I just want to thank you for doing the interview with us today, and just give you the opportunity for any closing thoughts before we end the interview.
No, I think this is great. Thanks so much for letting me do a follow-up with this, because things have changed. I watched my little interview before, and I was like, oh yeah, things have definitely changed within a year. I can't believe how fast and how slow things have gone as well, though. But I'm grateful for it being 2022. And I'm looking forward to, what's going to happen next. And I'm also interested in seeing what other people are doing with the follow-up interviews and things like that. I'm really curious how things have changed for everyone, because I know these last couple of years have definitely changed for me. So yeah, Tanicho, thank you. And that's it.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.